watching BattleCast Primetime. Coming up, the music of Tiberian Twilight, a look inside the soundtrack to the game. We profile the Kodiak in Birth of a Unit. And Command & Conquer breaks new ground. Meet the Motion Comic. APOC in his corner and a huge BattleCast 10. BattleCast Primetime starts now. You're logged in to BattleCast Primetime. I'm Raj Joshi. Blasting your way through fields of Tiberium just wouldn't be the same without the help of our first topic. Command & Conquer's epic soundtrack, the music behind the game. For a look at what you can expect to hear in the final installment of the Tiberium storyline, we go to Nick Levere's Roll Sound.
What we're going for in C&C 4 is a much darker, more mature sounding score than we previously delivered in Red Alert 3. We're going to try and deliver a completely different audio experience, music experience for each of the factions, NOD and GDI. So we chose 3 different composers to write the score for Command & Conquer 4. The first one I chose was a guy called Jason Graves.
My name is Jason Graves, one of the composers for Command & Conquer 4. I was responsible for the GDI underscore, which is all orchestral, all organic, all acoustic, and I mocked up here in my studio before we recorded at Air Studios in London with the London Philharmonia, which was an absolute blast to work with. If I had to describe the score in a couple of words, I would say dark, dramatic, foreboding, tense, dissonant for sure. Nick had great ideas for everything, and the end result with the orchestra was just absolutely phenomenal.
So the next guy I chose, this guy wrote the NOD score, was Tim Wynn.
We made a conscious effort from the very get-go to have the GDI score have a completely different sound than the NOD score. Well, I think one of the hardest things was there was a piece of music that I had created that Nick and I both really loved for the NOD score, but we were like, well, what can we do that's better than this track? And I kept on trying to, do something that was better, and Nick would say, well, have you listened to the Elskrin track? That's kind of what I want. And we just kept on trying to get better and better and better and better than the original track, and we just couldn't beat the original, so that's how it ended up in the game. And basically it's the quote-unquote NOD sound. So
the third guy I chose was a guy that I'd worked with for a very long time, James Hannigan. He and I have got a history that goes back to 1995. We started working together.
And I guess that you could say that my role on this project has been as a kind of jack of all trades, in the sense that I've had my fingers in just about every pie. I think in the case of C&C 4, for me, I was very interested in the backstory, and I was trying to sort of equate the music with the characters and with the overall sort of direction that you're going in throughout the game. So as the story unfolds, you'll get this sort of music, particularly in the cutscenes, that's sort of moving the story along and adding this emotional backdrop. So it's not just about action on, action off.
So if I was going to sum up what the music for the game was going to be like, I would hope that basically it delivered a completely different experience depending on whether you were playing as GDI and NOD. And then within playing as either GDI or NOD, it delivered a huge emotional range as well, from incredibly dark and frantic to beautiful and sometimes sad, but beautifully sad. And I look forward to hearing your feedback on the forums. Cheers.
And now, a man who's been serenading us all with his dulcet tones as community manager. Aaron Kaufman is back with the latest APOC's Corner.
Welcome to the Corner, Commanders, and a happy early Valentine's Day. Now, as our gift to you, we are releasing the glorious 1999 hit Tiberian Sun to freeware. And guess what? After all these years, you can still play it online. Thank you, X-Wiz. We've also re-added Tiberian Dawn and Red Alert 1 from our previous C&C anniversary celebrations to the download page, so you can really get your nostalgic classic gameplay. If you've never experienced classic C&C gameplay, then download Tiberian Dawn, Red Alert 1, and Tiberian Sun for the ultimate dose. And we're also launching one hell of a contest and giving away the ultimate high-end PC. I've got one myself. It's packed with an AMD Phenom 2 processor, Cooler Master V8 heatsink cooler and Storm Sniper case, an ATI 4850 graphic card, Western Digital 10K Raptor 300GB hard drive, and a Logitech G15 keyboard and G9 mouse. Holy shnikes, Commanders! This is the uberest gaming PC to experience Command & Conquer 4 on, and you know what? It can be yours. So pay a quick visit to our contest page at www.commandandconquer.com/contest. Hint, entry involves our official C&C Facebook page, so you better become a fan. Last month, we put a call out on Twitter asking you what you wanted to see more of in my corner. And you guys asked for a lot more fan art. Well, here's a look at some of the best submissions I've ever seen. First up, we've got Nephlite's sultry and promiscuous Nod Hijacker reimagined. I'd classify this image as borderline safe for work. Next, you may remember the Nod engineer debate that spurred this flying Wormmen artwork by Pizza Atomica and the infamous Wormando by Valdez. Toby85 recently sent us a badass looking Nod Scorpion that looks like it's been injected with an insane amount of Tiberium. And Sergio Canales brings us the Nod Stinger, in other words, the Cyber Stinger. Truly an impressive model. And no art spotlight would be complete without mentioning these two guys. Exister, whose Kane New Year's wallpaper really got the party started, and General Kane Nash's Nod Cyborg Commando. Fantastic work, guys. Now, one extremely honorable mention goes to my new friend, Aomer of C&C Saga for his amazing C&C 4 crawler Lego creations. The detail on these is absolutely extraordinary. Well done, Aomer. I wanted to take a moment to give a quick shout out to the Renegade X team for being nominated in Epic's Make Something Unreal contest for the Best Machinima category and Best Vehicle set. You guys have done the C&C community proud and have an amazing FPS mod to show for it. So please congratulate the Renegade X team by hitting up their website at www.renegade-x.com and come on guys, download Renegade X. You'll need Unreal Tournament 3 to play it, but come on, who doesn't have that game? Now let's kick it over to my homeboy and assistant community manager, Tupac, for another Map Madness.
Thanks, Aaron. This week I'd like to spotlight a map by Commander Real War titled Gamma City for Red Alert 3. This is a small 4-player map containing an isthmus separating 2 water channels. Many garrisonable buildings offer good fortifications for people who want to control the map. However, don't forget about the water, where you can find 2 ore nodes per channel. It would be foolish to forget about them. Download this map and more every week in Tupac's Map Madness.
Last call, Commanders. Are you one of the best at Red Alert 3? Do you love competitive tournaments? Now, whether you're a noob or a pro, you have to check out ConquerCup.com. Spearheaded by some very passionate multiplayer RE3 fans, ConquerCup.com is quickly becoming the premier destination for competitive Red Alert 3 tournaments. And why not? It's free. Some of the best players from around the world like Das Dulan and Ladder Season 3 winner Technique are competing, and cash prizes from $50 to over $100 and other cool items are up for grabs. I'm also throwing my official personal support and will happily contribute to this great site. Not to mention, by the time you're watching this, or shortly thereafter, ConquerCup.com will have also expanded to Kane's Wrath. Combine that with live casting from the infamous gun run at CNCLive.com, and you've got one very special destination. Now that's all for this month in the corner. Back to you, Raj.
Thanks, Aaron. As we move on, we are joined by a BCPT veteran, Sam Bass, who brings us all a little birth of a unit surprise. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Kodiak.
Thanks, Raj. Hi, I'm Sam Bass, lead designer of Command & Conquer 4, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Kodiak. So the Kodiak was part of an effort on our part to take Tiberian Sun era units and move them into 2077, which is when C&C 4 takes place, but sort of pay tribute to those classic C&C units at the same time. And one of the things we did is we didn't want to just take the unit as is, make it 3D, put it in the game. We wanted to update the look a bit because significant time had passed within the canon, and you know, it would be silly, oh, we're going to pull this thing out of mothballs and put it in the battlefield. So Chris Tamburino, our art director, and his team worked very hard to keep the classic lines and shape of the Kodiak while also bringing it into the year 2077.
So the Kodiak aircraft was one of the first units we worked on for Command & Conquer 4. And what I have here are a number of the preliminary drawings we did. We knew that we wanted it to look like a flying aircraft carrier, and that it should, you know, really conform to the GDI aesthetic, which is very sort of blocky, very heavy shapes, which was kind of an interesting challenge for us because, you know, we really wanted something that felt as though it was part of the GDI arsenal, but it wasn't a flying brick. It had to be an interesting shape. Finally, with this version, we felt we were really very close. Kind of issue we had with this concept was that the weapons weren't too visible, and that was very important from a gameplay standpoint. So that finally led us to version 9 here, which is very, very close to the in-game asset. You can see we've kind of split the front open a little bit, put cannons, and we also made the very prominent engines in the background. We thought that would really give the VFX department an opportunity to do something very cool in the back.
Hey, my name is Casey Robinson. I'm one of the effects artists on the Command & Conquer 4 team, and I'm going to show you some of the Kodiak effects. Here we have the Kodiak in its old geometry form. You can see that the afterburners are back here are set geometry, and what we would do is we would just hide or unhide as it would move. It wasn't very fluid. It didn't feel like an afterburner kind of going off. So our art director wanted the aircraft to bring it to particle systems. The trick for a lot of the aircraft afterburner stuff was to make it sure it didn't look like fire. Normally when we have our damage effects, we tend to apply them to the engines. So if the aircraft is damaged, smoke will billow out from behind it. So if we had any sort of thruster that looked fiery, we would have a kind of disconnect for the player thinking that maybe his aircraft was damaged.
This was basically going to be sky artillery. In large explosions, there's actually a distortion around. There's the shockwave of the air displacing causes an actual distortion effect, and we wanted to get that in this game. The way we did that was there's a separate render layer, and this layer we have filled with distortion. We had to make a pretty big explosion, but we had to keep it very compact for the gameplay, whereas normally during some type of movie and TV explosion you can have thousands of particles spitting out. This one we had to have, say, 4. So each particle we had to get a lot of mileage out of each one.
It's incredibly powerful. It can take out structures. It has an interesting upgrade that lets it go into a defensive mode where it shields itself and surrounding unit. It also has an anti-air weapon, so you can deal with enemy support aircraft. And that's the Kodiak. So this is Sam Bass, lead designer of C&C 4, saying, hope you like it.
We knew that 2010 would see the debut of Command & Conquer 4, Tiberian Twilight. But what comes as a surprise to many outside of the BCPT staff is the impending launch of the latest medium for the franchise, the motion comic. Here's a sneak peek.
What am I doing here?
So we've never really done a motion comic with the Command & Conquer series before, or a comic book in general, which is interesting because science fiction as a whole, especially something where the characters have these sort of large personalities like Command & Conquer, lend itself very well to the comic book or graphic novel medium.
The motion comic is a very innovative and new thing for me. I've never written a motion comic before, and it is a very separate process than writing a comic.
Because here we can depend on really talented artists and storytellers to really bring you the world and let you create it in your mind.
Ape Entertainment is run by 2 co-publishers, David Hedgecock and Brent Irwin, who are the most fantastic guys imaginable. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to both of them. They command a stable of enormously talented artists who they essentially gave us a roster and let us pick. And for me, this is a dream.
When I first started getting panels in, me along with everybody else at EA was like, wow, this is way better than we thought it was gonna be. This is not a coloring book. This is a really detailed look into the C&C universe.
So the protagonist of the motion comic is a perfect example of the disenfranchised. He is not, GDI or Nod, he's just a guy, a farmer, out in the yellow zones, and he's watching the yellow zones basically turn into, for those who played C&C 3, red zones, these pseudo-alien landscapes that have been riven by Tiberium, very hard to live. The air isn't breathable, there is no water. And so he's basically seeing his livelihood and his home destroyed. So he goes to the blue zones, the supposedly safe areas, and tries to reintegrate himself into society there to limited success, leaving him further disenfranchised.
On the flip side, writing for Gideon was extremely exciting. This is a kind of a new character. This is one that doesn't have a lot of history with the fan base, and you only sort of get tastes of him, I think, within the fiction of the game. So it was exciting for me to be able to explore the instability of the character, this idea of a younger person taking over Nod, and not really having what it takes the way that Kane did. Having a little bit more of an unstable personality, and not having the planning and the forethought and the sort of preternatural calm that comes in when you're dealing with Kane.
Obviously, this is a Command & Conquer motion comic, so you're going to get Kane, and in fact, I can't discuss Kane's role in it because it would be a bit of a spoiler, but he plays a key role, as he always does, in the sort of overarching meta-narrative of the motion comic beyond the story of the protagonist of the comic.
So being able to work on a motion comic, you aren't constrained by frame size, by the limits of CG, by anything. You can do whatever you want.
The motion comic adds a significant amount of depth and detail and a worthwhile companion to the game as a whole.
Seeing the final product put together with all the amazing artists, the amazing post-production people here at EA, and the guidance of visionaries like Sam Bass has really expanded my world and expanded my understanding of what you can do in the comic book medium. I can't wait to see Command & Conquer come to this new platform.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Promotional considerations for BattleCast Primetime is brought to you by Cooler Master Storm, makers of the Sentinel Advanced Gaming Mouse. Strength, security, and control. Storm Tactics. Use promo code EA Gamers and get 15% off your next purchase. Gunner Optics Advanced Gaming Eyewear. See better, play better. Stop frying your eyes and go to gunners.com and use promo code Tiberian. Get 15% off your Gunner Optics Advanced Gaming Eyewear. Logitech, makers of the G35 surround sound headset. Victory never sounded so good, thanks to game-changing 7.1 surround sound powered by Dolby.
All right, you've waited long enough. I've joined our friends at Logitech and GameReplays.org, and we've combed through the best BattleCast matches out there. Ladies and gentlemen, get your fill of mayhem and destruction in the BattleCast 10. I am Twink versus Sakalik on Tournament Rift. Twink dons the traditional red while Saka goes for something a little easier on the eyes. Twink and Sak both expand to the center and face off with Scorpion tanks. Twink sends attack bikes and takes out a couple of harvesters while his massive Scorpion army steamrolls Saka out of the center and his starting location. Tank Commander Twink finds a blue field expansion but has to keep on rolling so the fanatics don't blow him up. Saka desperately builds a Redeemer, but avatars take out the building right as the Redeemer is coming out. Strapped for cash, Saka sends harvesters to leash Tiberium right under Twink's nose. With this money, he starts harassing with stealth tanks, but this doesn't stop Twink from monster-stopping Saka's center expansion and entire attack force. Saka recovers from the brink of destruction because Twink left him a few buildings. Two Redeemers face off and die. Saka is able to take out the expansion, and when the Redeemer facility falls, so does Twink. Make sure you clear your plate, Twinkie, or no dessert for you. RA3 Latvia Soviets versus OLS Proflov Empire on Cabana Republic. Proflov starts by sending nanocores all over the map to grab the oil derricks. Latvia in the west expands north and then tangos with some Tingus. But the Twin Blades and MiGs chase them home and beat them down. Latvia gets cocky and attacks again with too few MiGs and gets chased down by Tingu Depth Squads instead. Latvia tries to close the Iron Curtain on Prof by taking out his expansion and attacking with tanks. They take out the dojo, but not before Yuriko gets out of class. Professor Prof starts to school Latvia with psionic powers and vetted Tengu attack groups. Onis and wave artillery start rolling out and beating Latvia like a schoolyard bully. Looks like Professor Prof is giving out detention. Technique Soviets versus Manic Allied on Infinity Isle. Both players tango in the center, but Technique in the east anticipates the early bomber run. But his MiGs are not enough to stop the cryocopter bomber combo. So Technique drops space trash and then starts pounding on Manic's front door and almost knocks out the MCV. Manic gets pushed out to sea and continues to harass Technique's ore collectors. And with a duo of aircraft carriers starts a mania of attacks. But Manic gets too close and slips into depression when Technique sinks his battleships. Nice try, Manic. Fujisaki, Zocom in purple, and IMOP as GDI on Tournament Rift. Fuji in the east calls in a squad of pitbulls and APCs and starts harassing early by dropping mines in the tip field. IM tries to expand south, but Fuji catches him swarming with pitbulls. Big Papa comes onto the field but can barely beat back IMOP's mid-game base creep. Fuji takes out the MCV as orbital bombardment rains on top of him. IM's Marv joins the game and gets loaded with zone troopers. Fuji is teched up to mammoth tanks and sends 2 to harass IM's expansion base. IMOP retaliates, but his Marv goes down, no thanks to those slingshots. That doesn't stop OP as he gets a commando in under the cover of a Predator attack. But it's a failure. With a mammoth tank knocking on his back door and the Marv wiping out the main attack force, it spells game over for IMOP. Best Friend Ever Nod and Advanced Noob GDI face off on tournament decision. Advanced Noob advances early by dropping a war factory and some base defenses outside Best Friend Ever's base and pumps out some Predator tanks. Best Friend holds them off with obelisks of light. Advanced tries for Best Friend Ever's expansion as a Redeemer joins the fight. Advanced Noob is forced to sell off his MCV. The Redeemer advances onto Noob's base, and BFE quickly proves that this Redeemer is here to stay. With no backup plan to his rush, Advanced Noob rises to Uber Noob. Proflock 89 Empire versus Mephisto PL Allied on Battle Base Beta. Mephisto shows off GDI's air superiority early and starts taking out units and buildings one by one. Proflock pushes past the air defenses and takes out some ore collectors and an airfield. He tries to take out some air units by landing his VX choppers, but they are not enough. Mephisto recovers and takes the fight to Prof on both land and air. As his Apollos level up to heroic, the Tengus no longer pose a threat. The cryo-bombardment combo continues. In an act of desperation, Prof takes some Onis and Tsunamis to attack. The Onis get shrunk down to size and the Mirage tanks come out of hiding. Prof has no choice but to turn tail and run. Body Zocom and Unleashed face off on tournament decision. Unleashed starts with tip spike harassment and then starts to take his MCV to the middle. But he is met by APCs and Predator tanks. He unpacks and you would think he is dropping base defenses. But no! It's a tip silo and a hand of nod. Say bye-bye, MCV. The tanks are distracted long enough that they get chased out by Unleashed. Hurt Body picks up his kids and flies them home where they meet up with their other tank playmates. Body denies Unleashed a southern expansion. Unleashed is forced to go to the exposed north where Predators and APCs hunt him down. A Redeemer tries to squash the problem, but there are mammoth tanks as well. Unleashed doesn't have the economy to match Body's Tier 3 army. Well played, Body. Clanmates Sofrenel Allied and Matisse Soviets butt heads on Infinity Isle. Sofrenel attacks early with Peacekeepers and takes out 2 structures before getting run over by a hammer tank. Matisse changes strategy and puts out some MiGs and harasses with Twin Blades and Flak Troopers. Fast forward and massive tank forces face off in the center. Soviets push all the way to Sofrenel's base and then get chased home. But Matisse has teched up to Tier 3 and Kirovs and APOC tanks join the battle. The Soviet airfield gets destroyed, but there are already 3 Kirovs. and even the shrunken APOC tanks pack a punch. With nothing to stop the mini steamrolling squad, Sopranel cuts his losses and skedaddles. Berkeley Allied versus Technique Soviets on Infinity Isle. Tech expands to the sea early and Berkeley rushes to the center. Berkeley drops a Navy shipyard and starts harassing and destroying the southern expansion. Tech retaliates by throwing space trash at Berkeley's ore collector. Frustrated by the constant pestering at his sea expansion, Tech abandons it and focuses on a massive land assault. Berkeley has spent too much time harassing and teching that he gets overrun by a Tier 2 force. He tries to help from the sea, but Berkeley can only slow Technique down. Being left out to sea, Berkeley uses the carriers to attack from a safe distance. But Tech takes out Berkeley's last unit-producing structure with a massive satellite, and uses Tesla bows to take out the last of Berkeley's units. Way to flex those expert muscles, Technique. Hydraulic faces off against Cloverfield in a Tiberium Wars GDI mirror match. Hydraulic sporting purple base creep towards the northern expansion field. Cloverfield has already taken the northern expansion as well as an early econ boom. Hydraulic's Orcas attack the expansion but can't keep up with 2 war factories pumping out pit bulls. As Predators emerge from Clover's base, Hydraulic throws down sonic emitters and is able to keep Cloverfield at bay. But Hydraulic is behind in the money game and has to sell off some of those precious emitters to expand to the south. The attacks from the north begin again, but this time there are mammoth tanks with Juggernaut backup in Clover's corner. Looks like Cloverfield has found his lucky charm and he clears out his opponent's main base. But Hydraulic reads that the game has changed and throws all his forces and the kitchen sink at Clover. If Hydraulic can take out Clover's expansion, he might pull through. With only 2 buildings left, Clover takes out the last of Hydraulic's forces and finds both a win and a lucky Tiberium Shamrock.
The 10, brought to you by Logitech, makers of the customizable G9X laser mouse.
Well, that's it for this month. Hey, we've got more motion comics to turn out. Oh yeah, a game to get out there. So pre-order your copy today. Want more BattleCast Primetime action? Keep logging on to www.commandandconquer.com for all of the latest news and info. For all of us at BattleCast Primetime, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the battlefield.